Hi and welcome to the channel. Monthly wrap-up time, June. I don't know how y'all do it. I think I've had a great reading month. I've read lots of shorter books, but I've only finished 4 books. How do people read more? Anyway, let's talk about the 4 books that I have read and actually touch on what else I'm sort of in the progress in, because I haven't really had a good reading month. But I think I'm going to have to hand in my fantasy card because, not all really fantasy books at all. There are 2 though, so it's supposed to be still 50%. But I'm going to start with John Scalzi's Old Man's War. So I've been reading The Expanse for the best part of a year now, and we're coming right to the end, and I thought to myself, right, I've enjoyed The Expanse quite a lot. It's not probably going to sit in the tier of my greatest ever series. Maybe it will in retrospect once time and nostalgia kicks in, but I want to find another series that's like that is sort of easy to read and that I can dig into whenever I'm feeling like I need to get away from some of the heavier reads that I normally have, some of the bigger books, some of the chunks that appear on my shelves, like behind me. So what better way to do that than look for... Well, I didn't really know what I was looking for, and to be honest, I ordered a couple of books and see what happened. But the first one that I grabbed was Old Man's War by John Scalzi. Now, I knew John Scalzi was an author who was sort of supposed to be easier to read. That is probably one of the hallmarks. Very readable prose, very readable text, but I did want it to be within a sci-fi world. And Old Man's War is a 5-book series, I believe, that a lot of people seem to really like the reading experience. I burnt through this in about 2 days. Couldn't stop reading it. It was so readable. It has excitement, but it's not like an all-action book or something where something is always happening in terms of, God, I need to know what's happening. It's something like, a Dan Brown book or something where there's something always going on. You go, God, I need to know what's next. It wasn't necessarily that. Well, I'll tell you what the book's about in general. So, there is a war. Man is off into space and is fighting wars against alien races, etc. Except it needs more people. And, well, as a way to combat this problem, rather than taking the 19, 18, 17-year-olds off the planet and putting them to war and then them being expendable resource, they offer the opportunity for older people to re-enlist. Now, how do you get older people? Surely older people fighting in a war is useless. Well, they use it with the proviso that they're going to offer these people anti-aging form of life, that they would get renewed life, and all they will have to do is give up some time to the army and to the cause. And if they survive, and the odds are told to be pretty poor that you will survive, that you will have your freedom and your some sort of youth back. For anybody reaching a certain age, i.e. 75, this seems like a very appealing thing to do. How to prolong your life and get renewed life. At the start of the book, our main character decides with his wife as a pact that they will both enlist in the army at this stage to kind of see how they do it. Now, it's a secret as to actually what happens, because you're removed off from Earth at the time and you're offered this alien technology, whatever it may be, to start your new life. But unfortunately, before the 75th birthday, our main character loses his wife and he goes up there as alone. So he's a man that is struggling with both the loss of his lifelong partner and the promises and plans that they had made together to kind of think forward to the future. And there's a lot of really imaginative and rich thematic stuff already wrapped up in there, dealing with how you adjust and when you've kind of lived a whole life, using the experience of all of the things that you've learned in a new setting or in a new environment that you weren't involved in. There's some anti-war stuff in here in terms of our main character has always been anti-war his whole life, but yet finds himself faced with his mortality into, well, here's an opportunity to use war for good, and how does that clash with him? And also about kind of, if everybody's in this thing together, how do you build new relationships as an adult with people at a certain age? If you're anything like me, you get to a certain stage of life and the ability and chances to make new friends or make new adult relationships is greatly diminished. And John Scalzi's book, Old Man War, is something, like I say, I devoured over 2 days. It's so enjoyable. If you like sort of even the academy parts of like Harry Potter, that kind of trope, I think you'll find something to like in this book as well. It's not heavy sci-fi, but it's sci-fi enough that if anybody really likes the deeper uses of technology, deeper uses of philosophical sci-fi, that kind of stuff. There's enough in here to get you to do. And like I say, quick, easy read. Devoured it in 2 days. Can't wait to get more. I bought the next 2 books in the series to kind of continue on my journey and give myself, you know, a nice out when I'm feeling a bit overburdened. Or next up, well, Sins of the Mother, Book 4 of the War Eternal, which has been sitting on my shelf for I don't know how long. I think I'd read about 50 pages of this a couple of months ago and kind of stuck the bookmark in and thought to myself, I'll get back to that. And, well, without spoiling the whole War Eternal, it centres around these 2 main characters in the front. God, it's very hard to look at a camera and point at pictures. But we have Iskara Helsing, who has been the star of the first 3 books, which is sort of a self-contained trilogy in its own right, talking about her evolution from a young woman into being the Corpse Queen, as she is at the start of this book, and has had like a very storied and violent past. Eska as a main character, somebody who you loved and learned to hate, or learned to love, but as a hateful character, whatever way round that goes, and is somebody who you're sort of conflicted reading. She does some terrible things. She's angry. She's got a real foul mouth. And yet, we're sort of supposed to root for her. It's really interesting, the first 3 books. But it continues on now with the Sins of the Mother as we look and investigate the relationship with her kids and the kids that are around her. This series just goes from strength to strength. I kind of thought after the first 3 books that it would wane off, and for the first about 100 pages or so, I would say I still thought that, and then bang, it all kicked off. I rushed towards the end and got a really, really satisfying conclusion to this book, and one that very clearly sets up the final book in the series, Death's Beating Heart, which I've subsequently picked up and have ready to rock in subsequent months. This book explores much of the bigger world around us, the impact of the stuff that were found out in books 2 and 3 of the War Eternal, and some of the bigger world building stuff is explored here, like I say. And I think this series is just great. I think this is really terrific writing. It has a sort of approachable style, and for the first time, I think, in all 4 books, I think I found and really identified with Iskara, maybe as being that older person, and can see how some of the things that Eska had done in her past influence what she's going to do now, and how rewarding that was as a reader to have went on this journey along with her. Great fun. Next up, well, another fantasy book, and it is... Should stop throwing those up in the air. It's Wistful Ascending by J.C.M. Byrne. I have done a separate review for this on the channel. This main character of Rohan, on the front cover in his yellow and purple jumpsuit, is a man who's trying to escape his past. He is in a sci-fi world. He's on board. I'm working on a space station called Wistful Ascending title. But Wistful is a sentient spaceship. It has thoughts, feelings, and it converses with Rowan. And Rowan is employed on this space station as a guy who tows ships into port, but he does it by hand. Well, how does he do it by hand? I hear you say it's because he's sort of Superman and he's a superhero, leaving behind his old life in the military where he just basically fought and used his superpowers for not so good, and he's trying to rebuild his life and live a quiet existence and a normal existence by towing ships into port. And as you may expect, his life gets somewhat complicated during the events of this book, as people know what he can do, but how he gets embroiled into helping and protecting those that are near and dear to him, and the situations that he finds it in. It's about strength of character and how your past doesn't define your future, how you can build a new future, and how people will judge that or not judge that or let that happen if and is their will. A really, really enjoyable read. Again, I've got book 2 sitting in there. I bought it, Return of the Griffin, looking forward to getting to that and exploring more about this world, because this isn't just a sci-fi book, it isn't just an action book. There's again some rich thematic stuff in there. It's kind of gorier and more violent in some small places than I ever thought it would be. It is incredibly funny, as kind of Rohan quips a lot during it. It's not a humorous book, I don't think, but there's a lot of quips and observances that happen through it, and it's sort of very reminiscent of Harry Dresden's Rolling Knife, as he kind of gives these off-the-cuff comments. So if you like Dresden, I think you'll like Wistful Ascending. Kind of very sort of similar feeling to me, and a really fun read. Last main book I'm going to talk about is Chris Carter's The Crucifix Killer. Book 1 in Robert Hunter series, thriller series. I think this is book 1 anyway. I think it's the kind of series you can read in any order. It's a crime, serial killer kind of book. And I'd heard, well, lots of people in Dominic Books' Discord channel talking about this for years as being things that are very, burned through, all very high quality crime novels. And I'd heard George Reed's books talk about making his way through this series as well, and I thought, right, I'm in a full mishmash of genres and things that I'm reading here at the moment. Let's throw a crime book in here every now and again. And I read this, the story of the Crucifix Killer, who is a killer who they thought they had caught. Crime stories have been told loads of times beforehand, but all of a sudden killings start up again, and the main investigator is back in the case, and he has a new partner, and, well, I don't think I can say too much about the Crucifix Killer other than it was another very quick read, something that I really burnt through, something that was very readable, had lots of twists and turns, and comes from somebody, Chris Carter, who, it's well said here, is a criminal psychologist for several years, and he worked over 100 cases involving serial killers, murderers and dangerous offenders, using that experience to put into novelisation form. Like I say, really interesting. I have to admit, I didn't totally see the twist coming at the end. Damn it, probably should have, but that makes it all the more fun for you to play along and read along at home. I'd probably pick up another one of these in a couple of months. It's not like some of the other series that I'm doing that are like, oh, I need to continue on, because like a lot of crime-ish novels, they kind of sit alone and are there for when you want something different to read. And aside from that, what else have I been reading? Well, I'm halfway through in our read-along. We're doing a very slow read-along of the Wars of Light and Shadow. We're in book 2, The Ships of Merior at the moment. We're doing 4 chapters every 2 weeks. There's only 14 chapters in the book, so you can see how far along I am. This series just goes from strength to strength. I'll talk about it probably more next month when we finish it, but I mean, the prose have become, even more delicious to read. What might have at one stage been sort of more difficult to read, we're now in the middle of, and it's just so much. Oh, it's just such great writing. The world has been established for us enough through the first book that we're really feeling the rewards of that. And I think, I said it in one of the streams, I think chapter 5 that's within this book is one of the greatest chapters that's been ever written in fantasy. I just think it's just a coming together of all that is great and good about the world, about the style of writing and the events that happen and the story that's being told. Oh, so good. And that's what I got up to this month and what I read this month. I'll just a short TBR video at some stage over the month, which I'll talk about some of the books that I am currently reading and what I plan to read, but a lot of them are continuations of this series that we see here. And a bit of a tip. So for those of us that don't really DNF, I tend to do a bit, well, I haven't done it with this, but you get the idea. When I get through a book and I'm like, I'm not really feeling that right now, I don't really DNF it. I usually just leave a bookmark on the top and say I'll come back to that on another stage. It sort of happened with Sins of the Mother earlier on. I'd left that for a couple of months. God, I had loads of those books sitting about and I'm working my way through them slowly. It's helping my reading and helping me feeling that sense of accomplishment, and also make me revisit stories that I thought I wasn't enjoying or wasn't enjoying at the time, coming back, and then they become new favourite reads like Sins of the Mother. What have you been reading this month? Let me know what you've been reading. Let me know in the comments, and I'll speak to you again soon on the channel. I hope everybody takes care of themselves and has a great reading month. Take care.